Hey guys, welcome to, what is this, week 12? I guess this isn't an over video, so I've probably already welcomed you to week 12. But the purpose of this lecture video is to talk a lot about the rhetorical analysis essay. I'm going to go through quickly the rhetorical analysis essay assignment sheet. Then I'm going to go through some notes that you've seen already. However, I've tailored them specifically for this essay. And then I'm also going to go through an example. And I have color-coded everything in the essay assignment sheet. I've color-coded the notes and I've color-coded the example. The example that I will show you in this video likely would score a close to, if not perfect, score because this was written last semester and my student just did an excellent job and incorporated everything that I was looking for in an in-depth way. And so I want to give you this example and talk a little bit about why it's so effective. So first, let's look through the rhetorical analysis essay assignment sheet. This is what many of you are probably have already looked at this point, and I imagine that you've maybe come back to this throughout the past couple of weeks just to know that whatever you've been writing for, like your audience analysis and your tone analysis, has been in prep or with progress for this paper. You should have the audience analysis feedback in your emails by the time you're watching this video, and then throughout the course of this week I will give you feedback for the tone analysis. I just want to remind you that you can incorporate anything you've written for the past 3 small major assignments in your final paper. I do not consider that self-plagiarism because the whole goal of doing those assignments was to incorporate them into this essay. So if you have questions about that, let me know, but it's perfectly fine to reuse that content in your final essay and you know, use my feedback to make it better, to get more in-depth, to answer those how do you know questions or what makes you say that question. All right, so I'm going to read through the rhetorical analysis essay assignment sheet and just talk a little bit more about it and then go through the structure notes. Rhetorical analysis essay is 100 points. You will pick a commercial video advertisement or music video or movie trailer and analyze its rhetorical elements in a 2-page essay. I imagine you guys have already selected the topic or subject matter that you're going to analyze for this essay, and I think that's great. You certainly can change your topic at any point, or you can change your video. That's not a problem. In your essay, you want to ensure that you answer the following questions. Who is the audience? What is the purpose and message of the video? What is the tone? You can absolutely address any of the other elements of the rhetorical triangle, including ethos, pathos, logos, style, or speaker, but you have to talk about audience, purpose, and tone in your essay. Start with an introduction. Make sure that it ends with a thesis statement. I'm going to give you a couple of examples of thesis statements here in a minute. Transition into at least 3 body paragraphs with logical topic sentences that reflect and support the main idea. Most of my students in the past have had a paragraph on audience, a paragraph on purpose, a paragraph on tone. You certainly do not have to organize it that way. You could analyze different elements of the essay or of the video and then talk about, you know, maybe audience and purpose within the same paragraph, but most people find that breaking up their analysis of audience, purpose, and tone is the way that works best for them. If you're looking for alternative types of organization for this essay, you can send me an email. We can talk more about what exists out there for you. You know, for example, someone might just want to analyze music and how the music in the commercial maybe speaks to both audience and tone. Someone might, you know, then in a next paragraph, you could look at the color scheme and talk about maybe tone and message. And then in another paragraph, you might look at specifically the words or the language of the video that you're looking at. That is, again, fine. You just have to make sure that in your essay, you are still covering all 3 of those rhetorical elements: audience, purpose, and tone. Of course, you will have a conclusion at the end. In your conclusion, I would encourage you to do one of two things. Either talk about the significance of rhetorical analysis, particularly with like persuasive media, or make a claim about how effective the video was for its intended audience. Based on who you identified the audience to be, do you think that this commercial or music video or movie trailer hit its mark, or did it miss its mark? Is it really not as effective as it was supposed to be? You should know this by now. You can select anything that's reasonably appropriate. If you are changing your topic and you're wondering about reasonably appropriate, I think that there's not too many things out there that wouldn't be acceptable to analyze in an academic setting. If you have a concern or a question, certainly ask me. I really am open to you looking at a whole lot of pretty much anything. Language doesn't bother me, or particularly graphic images don't bother me, but if you're not sure, just let me know. And then of course end with a works cited page. And I will tell you as I'm looking through, the things that you've submitted so far in the unit, if your works cited page is perfect, and then you can just copy and paste it into your final paper. This is due on Sunday, so that will be April 14th. All right, let's look at the notes for this essay. So you have somewhere already seen just the basic notes on the structure of an essay. I'm giving you some options for the rhetorical analysis essay. So some of these things I'm going to kind of quickly go through because I've already talked about them before, but then there might be some that I analyze more. The color coding that you see here coincides directly with the color code that I have used throughout this example, so you can see where my student has, for example, put her hook sentence or background information, and then even further what types of background information that she needs. Okay, so in the first paragraph of your essay, of course you should have an introduction, and that should begin with a hook sentence or an attention grabber. It could be one sentence, it could be a couple of sentences. In the example we're going to look at, my student elected to provide a shocking fact or statistic in order to grab her reader's attention. I have a student in my face-to-face class who might be looking at a story maybe. I don't want anywhere in your essays for you to say I think, or in my experience, or in my opinion, or anything like that. So if you are going to incorporate a story, then it should be a story about someone else. Maybe if you're looking at, like my student is looking at a music video, and the video is about the main singer maybe like dealing with depression and knowing people who have committed suicide. And so my student could begin his essay with a story maybe about that artist and his own struggles, just a quick 3-minute narrative, 3-sentence narrative, nothing too in-depth for sure, but that might help to get the reader's attention, and that's something he's thinking of exploring. You could ask a question. Of course, you could provide a quote, but as we've talked about previously, I don't love the use of quotes, and I think that they're only effective when the quote is 100% applicable to the ideas presented within the essay, and that the quote is addressed in some way. You should not just start with a quote and then move on and not talk about the effectiveness of it or the purpose of it or anything like that. Then in the middle of your introduction, you should have background information. Again, any essay needs background information, and in any essay, it's really just what does your reader need to know about your subject matter in order to digest, process, and hopefully be convinced by the argument that you're making in your thesis statement. In this case, background information that's going to be the most helpful for writing a rhetorical analysis essay is identifying the video's information. what type of video you're looking at, and then the topic or the company or the person in the video, and then just a quick 1 to 2 sentence summary of what's going on in the video. It can be in a very overview way. You can say, this happens, then this happens, then this happens, but you do not need to provide an overwhelming amount of details here about summarizing the video and your background information, because if you do that, you will likely end up feeling like your body paragraphs are very short because you felt as if you already presented the details in your introduction and it would be redundant to present them again. Or if you do present a lot of your details in your introduction and then say them again in your body paragraphs, your reader will feel kind of that redundancy and that repetition that's not necessary in such a short assignment. So the example that we are going to look at, my student is analyzing a commercial, and so in that instance, if you are going to look at a commercial, which I don't think very many of you are, then you would just make sure you provided the product or the company's name when you're stating that video information. If you're looking at a movie trailer, make sure that you provide the title of the movie in your background information for your introduction. Just a side note, movie titles, sorry guys, movie titles are always written in italics font, and that's something that I'll be looking for and might take off points for in terms of the grammar section. So anytime you're looking at a movie, the title should be written in italics. If you are analyzing a music video, then you would provide the song title and the artist's name or the band's name. And in an opposite sense, the song title will always be written in quotation marks. This is really just the difference between long works and short works. A song is short. Some songs are longer than other songs, but most songs are over in 3 to 5 minutes. Movies are long works. They take, a couple of hours maybe for the movie to be finished. So in terms of time-based media, which is what we're looking at here, movie titles are long works, so that's why they're in italics, and song titles are short works. That's why they're in quotation marks. You could look at it in the same sense that we look at books. Books are long works, so we always write book titles in italics, but chapters out of books, so if we're just analyzing, chapter 3, that chapter is a short work within the book, and that would be in quotation marks. There are a lot of examples that we could go through here, and we'll talk more about that in our last unit when you guys begin doing research. So just keep that in mind. I'll be looking for the way that you're formatting your titles. The last sentence of your introduction is your thesis statement, of course, and your thesis in any essay needs to state the main idea or main argument, and ideally also state in an in a way that reflects the organization of your essay. It should state the main sub points that you will address. You should not give me a statement of intention. A statement of intention is saying something like, this essay will analyze the Taylor Swift music video and tell you what audience purpose and tone is. That sentence, a sentence like that, is in telling your reader your intention. I intend to do this in my essay, but that's not a thesis statement, because a thesis statement states the main idea. And so what you need to do in your thesis is tell me who the audience of this video is, what is the purpose or message, and what is the tone. We're going to look at 3 different examples in this video in a little later on. Okay, so once you've written your introduction, then you can move on to your body paragraphs. Again, at a minimum, you must have 3 body paragraphs. Whether you decide to organize those audience, purpose, tone, or based on the various details or elements found within the essay or found within the video, that's perfectly fine and completely up to you. In my notes, because I'm looking at an example that organizes based on audience, purpose, tone, you're going to see the notes reflecting that. This is not the only way to do it, so just keep that in mind. your first sentence in all of your body paragraphs should be the topic sentence, and the topic sentence is going to give you that main idea. So when you look at the example, I have color-coded the topic sentences in this purple color, but then depending on which paragraph I'm looking at, I've used bold for audience, underline for purpose, and italics for tone. In the topic sentences, if you're in the audience paragraph, again, assuming you organize it this way, then your topic sentence should state directly who the video's audience is. In the purpose paragraph, tell me what is the purpose of the video. In the tone paragraph, that first sentence should tell me what the tone is. If you are going to swap up and organize it differently, then you might end up analyzing first the color scheme. So if you're looking at, let's say, a dark color scheme and you feel like that speaks not only to audience but also to tone, then you would make sure that the dark color scheme, who the audience and tone is, all three of those things should be identified in some way in your topic sentence. So keep that in mind. Okay, so once you've written your topic sentences, then you need your supporting details. Now, the way that I have described supporting details for this particular essay is that your paper, in essence, is doing three things. It's making a claim about audience or purpose or tone. It's identifying details from the video that you're looking at that would support audience, purpose, or tone. And this is the one that my students have the hardest time with, it is connecting those details to the claim. So if you said the audience is middle-aged men, and you said the details are everyone is almost about to retire and golfing in this video, that's not enough. You have to explain the connection between the audience being middle-aged men and golfing. If you said that the audience is 20-year-old guys, and you said, well, I see a lot of I'm stereotyping here, attractive women, or there's a lot of mentions of sex appeal. That's how I'm getting the audience being 20-year-old guys. Well, how do you connect those? What's your logical reasoning for saying, because I see, I guess, half-naked women in this video, that suggests that we're targeting a group of young men? Why is that the suggestion? And you might have to, reach back into historically stereotyped marketing. That's totally fine. There is in this example, there is a correlation between the belief that men are going to be attracted to women with less clothing, and particularly if they're, going to buy a product, well, that might be tapping into their psyche. So that's the type of explanation that I want to see. These are the connections, the explanations, the logical reasoning, and you'll see that my student in this example does an excellent job with that. And then you need a concluding sentence. So don't end on a supporting detail. Make sure that you just kind of recap the main idea of the paragraph that you're looking at. In your conclusion, I want you to restate your thesis in 1 to 2 sentences. This should be restated in a new way. You shouldn't copy and paste your thesis from your introduction and put it in your conclusion. It certainly should say the same thing, but in just a different way. So work on different phrasings and find out which thesis is going to be best for your intro and which one is going to be best for your conclusion. In the conclusion, I also want you to answer that classic question that all conclusions should answer, and that is, so what? Why does this matter? What is the purpose for the information you've just given us? So for me, I always like to tell my students, I think you have 2 options here. You can either evaluate the video, was it effective based on its target or intended audience? Or you can tell me why analyzing the rhetorical persuasion or this types of videos, why is this important? Why does the general public need to be conscious or wary of the way that movie marketers, producers, or companies are trying to sell us ideas or trying to sell us movie tickets or whatever. Why does analyzing this stuff even matter in the first place? And you'll see in my student example that she's really thought about it and done an excellent job. And just as a reminder, please don't forget you need to have a works cited page at the end of your essay. All right. So I want to look at this example from one of my students who analyzed kind of a little bit of an older commercial, and she looked at a commercial produced by Lending Tree. I'm going to read the introduction to you and show you the various components of it. We'll talk a little bit about different types of thesis statements and the structure of hers. And then I'm going to read to you at least one of her body paragraphs, if not more. I might read the first one and then look at the various elements of the other two, and then I will read the conclusion and we will look at the works cited page. I won't necessarily go over the rubric today, but you do have a copy of the rubric for this essay in the FYI section, so if you want to know how I am evaluating it, that is how. Honestly, if you have everything that you see in these notes in your essay, you've made the connections, you've explained, your grammar is good, you have a works cited page, that's exactly how I'm grading this. What you see here, the things I'm asking you for, is what I want in your essay. Okay, so she titled her essay, "Somebody Help Me, a Rhetorical Analysis of Lending Tree." I'll read the introduction and then I'll break it down. A research study conducted by CNBC in 2016 concluded that over $493 billion were spent that year alone on advertising across the world. Television commercials, radio announcements, magazine articles, and social media posts are all successfully used by industries to obtain their desired results, whether this be convincing an individual to buy an overpriced product or to vote for an unfit candidate. Advertisements are tailored to consume and alter thoughts so industries can make money. Lending Tree, a consumer lending company, was able to accomplish their goal using this method in only 32 seconds. This company gives customers a list of competing lenders whom they have been paid by to help individuals find the best loan. Lending Tree released a commercial in 2011 specifically designed to make individuals not using their company seem unable to be truly successful in life. Lending Tree convinces middle-aged adults by using a jocular mood and destroying the illusion of perfection that establishing a financially stable life without their help is impossible. Okay, so this is her introduction, and in general, what it is doing is starting with a very broad discussion of advertising, and then narrowing that discussion down mostly to commercial advertising, narrowing it a little bit further down into a specific commercial or company, Lending Tree, and then narrowing it all the way down to the thesis statement, which is her analysis of that commercial. So she takes, imagine an upside down triangle. That is the visual structure of this introduction, and it is extremely effective. She begins with a shocking statistic that we are spending almost $500 billion, almost $500 billion on advertising in 2016. That is mind-boggling. I can't even fathom how much money that is, but I certainly believe it. She talks, again, background information. She's telling us about advertising. Then she identifies her subject matter, and that is this Lending Tree company and what they do. Then she gives us a small, very broad overview of her commercial that she's analyzing, and then she jumps down into her thesis statement. She uses audience here with middle-aged adults. She explains the jocular mood, which is the tone, and she tells us the purpose of the commercial, that Lending Tree is convincing its audience that establishing a financially stable life without their help is impossible. So when I look at her thesis statement, and I would score it I would give it a perfect score. I think that it covers everything I need it to do. It's succinct, it's very clear. I don't have any question about where she's going with her essay. And when I look at this, I decided, how did she structure this? Because it is very effective. Well, what she's doing, and if you're looking at these notes on your own, I've got a comment over here to the side, and if you look at them and you don't see the full comment at the bottom, you might have to select a phrase that says show more. But the structure of her thesis statement is, first she begins by identifying the video or the company, so she says Lending Tree. Then she gives us a verb, and then she tells the audience. She inserts an interrupter, remember we talked about this at the beginning of the semester, a phrase that interrupts her whole sentence. We could take the phrase out and the rest of her sentence would still make sense. So she interrupts her sentence and inserts the tone. And then she provides the purpose. That's the structure of this sentence. Here are some other examples, though, if you're feeling like, well, this is a great example for a commercial, but I'm not using a commercial, or I'm using a music video or a movie trailer. Well, here are some other example thesis statements that incorporate the same structure we see here, but in a different way. So here we've got the video, again, verb, audience, tone, purpose. The Taylor Swift Bad Blood music video entertains, that's our verb, audience 25 to 30-year-old single women. Then tone, by using a rebellious and angsty tone, and encourages these women to address their problems head on. Here we are giving purpose. I had to incorporate another verb in order to get that purpose identified. Now we can look at one that uses a movie trailer. The Finding Nemo movie trailer persuades, so again, video, verb, audience, persuades 4 to 10-year-old children by using a humorous tone to come watch another Disney Pixar movie. I made that one up. It wasn't as good as the other two. But again, using that same phrase, covering all our bases. We have audience, we have purpose, we have tone right there in the thesis statement. If your essay is going to rely heavily on message as well as purpose, then you would incorporate that into your into your thesis statement. Maybe, for example, in the Finding Nemo movie trailer, you could say something like, the Finding Nemo movie trailer persuades 4 to 10-year-old children by using a humorous tone, that going on an adventure with friends is a rewarding experience and ultimately encourages them to come watch another Disney Pixar movie. So you could incorporate the message into that statement as well, maybe right at the end with purpose. Okay, so this is an extremely effective introduction. I do notice that she has a fragment sentence here. Sure, that's okay. So again, like I said, almost perfect / perfect score for this essay. I'm going to read her first body paragraph, and I will break down the various elements of a body paragraph, and then I'll just kind of skim through the other two. Okay, Lending Tree designed their commercial to attract middle-aged adults by showing what could happen to their financial situation without the company's services. This company works to save individuals looking to buy cars, houses, or other big purchases money on loans. Therefore, Lending Tree targets potential customers currently looking to take out a loan. Teenagers and children do not often pay financial charges, therefore men and women ranging from 30 to 40 are the intended audience. The commercial begins with a man introducing himself as Stanley, standing in front of a beautiful, white, 2-story house with his wife and 3 kids. For the next 13 minutes, Stanley tells of his great family, 4-bedroom house in a nice suburban community, new Navy Toyota Land Cruiser, and even mentions that he is a member of the local golf club. Each aspect directly matches most adults' ideal life. By creating this picture-perfect dream world, Lending Tree has made men and women watching think, wow, I wish my life was like that. However, Stanley soon reveals, I'm in debt up to my eyeballs. Viewers can connect with his situation and be reminded of their own debt troubles. In a short amount of time, middle-aged adults in debt of any amount have established an emotional tie with the commercial. Okay, so here's what my student is doing. She's framing her paragraph using topic and concluding sentences, And in that, she's identifying her audience. She says middle-aged adults in her topic sentence. She says middle-aged adults in her concluding sentence. I want you to do the same thing. Make sure that you're framing your paragraphs with topic and concluding sentences. Now, jumping back to my notes really quickly, you'll notice that details from the video I have highlighted in yellow, and the explanations or logical reasonings I've highlighted in this aqua blue. So my student, and you can pick whichever organizational strategy works best for you. My student begins first by just analyzing what the company does in order to explain who the audience is. And in this way, she's not necessarily pulling from the video per se, but just her understanding of the company, which is why she begins her supporting details with explanations and logical reasonings, and then she gets into a discussion of what's happening in the commercial. So here in yellow, all she's doing is just basically summarizing and providing a description of what she sees in the commercial. Here I think she means 13 seconds and not 13 minutes, because she said that this commercial earlier was only 32 seconds. So I think there are some grammatical issues that we could address, but overall it's easy to understand. After she provides this aspect of the commercial, she analyzes that. She says, okay, why is this? What is happening here? Why is LendingTree showing this Stanley guy with the perfect, we're stereotyping, with the 2-story house, wife, kids, having a great car, living in a nice community, being a part of a golf club, perfect for the audience. So what my student is saying is look, she understands that maybe not everyone would find this to be ideal or perfect, but her audience, or the audience of this video, absolutely does. So if we're looking at that, now we have to ask ourselves, well, what type of audience would say, oh, this is my ideal life, I want to live like this? And she's making the argument that 30 to 40-year-olds are the type of people who are at the point in their lives where they're saying the perfect life will be this house, kids, family, etc. Could she have gone further and broadened it up to, or I guess narrowed it down to not just any old middle-aged adults, but people with particular family lives or hobbies or interests? Yes, absolutely. But she just kept it broad, and for the purposes of this essay, it's working fine. Then she talks about another detail from the commercial and analyzes it pretty briefly. So overall, we see this kind of back and forth between here's my analysis, here's a detail, here's some analysis, here's a detail, here's some analysis, concluding sentence. I think that is effective. To have all details and then all analysis can work if your details are very, very specific. But if your details are a little more broad, you might swap back and forth between analyzing each one at a time, because otherwise you may not cover all of those why questions or how do you know questions. Okay, so she does the same concept with the rest of her paragraphs. This is her paragraph on tone. She shows us some elements from the commercial, analyzes them, shows some more elements from the commercial, analyzes them, and then frames her paragraphs with topic and concluding sentences. We see that in her final paragraph on purpose. Does a little bit of analysis, shows commercial, analyze, shows more of the commercial, analyzes that, concludes. Then in her conclusion, which I'm going to read to you, she does both of the things that I'm asking for in the structure notes. She gives us the restatement of her thesis and the answer to a so what question. So let me read this conclusion and we'll break down each part. The company successfully captures middle-aged adults' attention by presenting a serious concern in a comedic way and leads them to believe only LendingTree can solve their debt problems. This commercial made the character, Stanley, seem ignorant for not using the company's service. However, consumers must understand that individuals can select great loans without LendingTree. Despite what the commercial wants viewers to believe, their services are not the only path to achieving that goal. This applies to all advertisements because industry's purpose in commercials is to influence the public, whether that be mindset, purchases, voting selections, or morals. Companies are willing to spend substantial amounts of money on a 1-minute commercial because they know their carefully chosen target audience can be easily persuaded. Individuals must pay careful attention to commercials and look for the underlying purpose in order to ensure that their decisions are indeed their own. So this is her conclusion. And again, she's not necessarily evaluating the effectiveness of this commercial other than a quick mention of successfully captures. However, the majority of her conclusion is really this so what question, what is the importance of analyzing persuasive rhetorical writing that impacts the general public? So here she's saying, hey, it's important to analyze commercials because you don't want to be persuaded by something that's not actually going to work for you. And rhetorical persuasion tactics are extremely effective, as you see here. She begins her conclusion with the restatement of her thesis statement. I think that that's an excellent way to start a conclusion. It is fine to begin your conclusion without the phrase "in conclusion," and that is okay. There are many teachers out there that will absolutely hate that phrase "in conclusion." I don't think it's the most effective thing. I don't completely hate it. I understand why it is a logical transition for many people. But this is an extremely successful conclusion that I just want to give you as an example. And then we have her works cited page. So the poster, the title of the YouTube video, the fact that it's from YouTube, the date that it was posted. I think now we are going to have to write like accessed, whatever year or month that we have here. So this is the example, and I think at this point this covers everything I want you guys to know about your rhetorical analysis essay. If you have any questions, if you need help organizing, coming up with connecting points, or finding ways to explain yourself, sometimes that a certain detail from your video does speak to either audience purpose or tone, but you're having a hard time explaining why or how, let me know, because we can do a quick email back and forth with brainstorming. That's no problem. So if you need help, you just email me and let me know.